With only a few words, Joe Biden exemplified exactly what's wrong with him as it pertains to the riots and leadership we need in this country to deal with the far left extremists. Biden clashes with Trump over Antifa. It's an idea, not an organization. Trump fired back, "Oh, you gotta be kidding me." Obviously, today the news is dominated by the results of the election last night, and the results are pretty much just a personal opinion each person has. But I can at least highlight some of the things I think are really important. And Joe Biden refusing to denounce, condemn Antifa, or even Black Lives Matter says all I need to hear. Donald Trump, did he do a good job denouncing white supremacists and far-right groups? No, he didn't. But he did at least say sure, and he has condemned them in the past, explicitly saying white supremacists and neo-Nazis. Joe Biden has condemned violence. I can respect that. Thank you, Joe Biden. Now, Joe, I'd like you to specifically identify Antifa and all of the various groups that are causing violence in this country under their flag. He won't. That makes me worried about what happens if he gets elected. Now, look, I can talk to you about a million and one things, right? Joe Biden is part of he was the VP in the Obama administration. They expanded the United States wars into North Africa, expanded our footprint in the Middle East. Not a fan of that. Donald Trump, historic peace deals, notably, they recognize Israel, withdrawing our troops. I don't know what else you want me to say about who I should be voting for. But when it comes to domestic issues, we're talking about Donald Trump banning critical race theory, this idea that hard work is inherent to white people, which is extremely racist, and Joe Biden's inability to call out the extremists. Meanwhile, who gets in trouble? It's actually quite simple. Here's the main story. 9 people charged after the McCloskey confrontation won't be prosecuted. I love it. After consideration of all factors, the city councilor determined that prosecution is not warranted against these particular individuals. Are you kidding me? They were trespassing. You can at least give them a slap on the wrist. People who engage in nonviolent civil disobedience at least get a slap on the wrist, like court supervision, which is like a nothing penalty. It's like, just don't commit a crime again. That's it. These people, no. The McCloskeys facing felony charges. This is not the way I would like to live. If someone comes to my house after 110 nights of rioting and I choose to defend myself, do I have to worry about going to prison? Yes, because we have seen it over and over again. In Milwaukee, when the mob went to this dude's house and he brandished a gun through his window, he gets arrested. The McCloskeys, they break on a private property. There's a mob of people. Now, the McCloskeys say they were threatening them. We're going to take that room. We're going to burn your house down. They came out with guns. We can have an argument about whether they should or should not have done that, like whether the threat warranted it. But I'm not here to argue the state of mind of a homeowner on their own property when people are trespassing. I'm not here to set a standard that like, well, maybe someone's allowed to trespass. No, you come on my property, you leave, I'm allowed to defend myself. Joe Biden will claim these groups don't exist. Not really happening. Maybe it's because Joe Biden is lying to our faces. Now, I got some criticism for Donald Trump, for sure. Apparently, he said that the Portland sheriff or something to that effect endorsed him. Well, I got the story. The Multnomah County sheriff is roasting Donald Trump. Not a fan. You know what? I don't care. I tend to like sheriff's departments a bit more than like big city police departments because at least you know who the person is. But I think Donald Trump still is doing a better job than the Portland PD, than the OSP. But I don't even want to blame the police on this one because they are trying to arrest the far left who are continually rioting. It's the district attorneys that won't prosecute. Let me read you this story, but I want to show you something else. It's worse than just Joe Biden refusing to acknowledge the existence of Antifa and other far left extremist groups. Joe Biden actually dragging the Kenosha kid, Kyle Rittenhouse. Look, I've said it. Rittenhouse should not have been out there and he should not have been armed. And there's a lot of things that shouldn't have happened before it even comes to my criticism of him, right? I think Kyle Rittenhouse was defending himself. I think him and his friends were trying to help, trying to put out fires and stop the far left Antifa from blowing up a gas station. Well, Black Lives Matter, I should say. He shouldn't have been there. The cops should have been there. The rioters shouldn't have been there. There's several more steps we have to go through before you're going to get me to say something, like to directly condemn Kyle Rittenhouse. I think he shouldn't have been there. I can criticize him. But Joe Biden says, quote, "There is no other way to put it. The president of the United States refused to disavow white supremacists on the debate stage last night. He didn't refuse. He just didn't do a good job of it. And the Proud Boys aren't white supremacists. Trump said of the Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. And they are hooting and hollering and cheering about it. I don't think that was appropriate for Trump either. I don't know what he means by that. But then he goes on to say, someone's got to deal with Antifa. Are you implying the Proud Boys should go out and start fights? Because I'm not a fan of that, bro. But I'll tell you what. The Proud Boys, dude, I mentioned this in my earlier segment. If 300 Proud Boys marched onto my property right now, I would not feel threatened at all. And then I know the left's going to be like, that's because you're privileged. No, it's because the Proud Boys are like a group of frat bros who are like chest bumping and like waving American flags. They're going to march around. I'm going to walk out and be like, what are you guys doing on my property? That's it. I've seen Proud Boys mess with people. I've seen them, get in the face of journalists. And guess what? There was a story out of Portland where apparently some journalist was getting hassled by a right-wing dude. It wasn't a Proud Boy. Someone complained to the Proud Boys, and Enrique Tarrio, who's the chair of the Proud Boys, told them to back off and leave the journalists alone because they understand. Look, you can argue they're evil and they're just playing to the press. Fine, whatever. If the leader of the Proud Boys is going to tell people to stop messing with others, he'll do it. Antifa won't do that. They'll be like, F you, and they'll get in your face and they'll attack you. We just had a video of a guy outside of his business armed, and they were like demanding that he say Black Lives Matter, and he wouldn't do it. And no one's going to defend that guy. They stayed and got in his face. Finally, somebody burned down one of his buildings. I have zero concern that the Proud Boys are going to burn down my building. They haven't done anything like that. Do they fight with Antifa? Yes. Are they fighting with anybody else? No. Sometimes the groups aligned with the Proud Boys will start fights. There's also Patriot Prayer. They start fights. Okay. But you know what? I know the Proud Boys have a hierarchy. I know that they try to maintain appearances, and that if you complain, guess what? They're going to leave. If you leave them alone, let them march around, nothing happens. It's just a group of people waving American flags and they're wearing black polo shirts. What about Antifa and Black Lives Matter? Now we see what happens when you do not condemn this, when you do not prosecute this. These people are emboldened. That's what Joe Biden is bringing to the table. Here's the story from Fox News. St. Louis prosecutors have declined to prosecute 9 people charged with trespassing on the private property of a gun-wielding couple who pointed weapons at them during a confrontation. In a statement to Fox News, Deputy City Councilor Michael Garvin said Tuesday that prosecutors investigated each of the cases through the review of multiple videos, property documentation, and interviews. After consideration of all factors, the city councilor determined that prosecution is not warranted against these particular individuals. Having reached that conclusion, all charges were refused. Not even a slap on the wrist. Dude, when you trespass, when you're protesting, you face a slap on the wrist, but nothing. The homeowners, though, who had no idea what was going on, who only know a giant mob of people is breaking onto my property, they're the ones being punished. This is what they're not telling you, okay? What they're not telling you is that the context of the circumstance, the McCloskeys likely did not know who these people were or what they wanted. Now, the activists understand, and they're like, but peaceful protesters were being threatened with guns. Dude, if I'm sitting on my porch eating dinner and a mob is going rabble, rabble, rabble and comes onto my property, I don't know what that group is. The activists think everyone knows exactly what they know. That's ridiculous. I remember during Occupy Wall Street, I'd see this row of cops, and the activists are screaming things like, whose side are you on? You're a class traitor, and all this other stuff. And I'm like, bro, that cop has no idea what you're talking about. None. I tell you this, you walk up to one of those cops and you say, hey, did you catch the score of the Yankees game last night? And he's going to be like, oh, yeah, I saw that. You go up to him and say, you're white privilege and class traitor. He's going to be like, what does that even mean? So you know what happens? These activists assume everyone knows what they know. So when they see photos of people on their porch armed, they're like, those people were attacking poor Black Lives Matter peaceful protesters. You know what I see? I see 2 people on their porch with guns, and I see a large mob yelling rabble. There's also a clip where someone's got a shotgun microphone. I don't know exactly what kind of mic it is, parabolic or something. It's a long black cylinder, thin cylinder. And a lot of conservatives don't know this. And they're like, look, they were armed. Now I see this and I'm like, no, dude, that's his DSLR with his, microphone mounted on top, the shotgun mic of some sort. That means it's a long microphone for capturing sound straight in front of you in a cone shape and not sounds around or behind you. It's not omnidirectional. But if conservatives saw that photo and assumed that was a gun, it's no surprise to me the McCloskeys, who don't know what you know, see somebody walk in brandishing something, and so they walk out with their guns. The left won't tell you that. They want you to believe that the McCloskeys know everything you know. They have no empathy, none whatsoever. They think we're the heroes, everybody knows why we're the heroes, and that's that. I'm sorry, that isn't how it works. Let's read a little bit more. They say, Garvin said residents who are trustees of the private Portland Place neighborhood also declined to pursue charges. The 9 people were issued trespassing citations earlier this month. Okay. Well, I guess trespassing citations is at least some kind of slap on the wrist. My concern, however, is if you have mobs going around committing acts of violence, then they enter private property and they're threatening this couple, shouldn't there be some kind of reciprocity? Like, we can say, yes, it was wrong of them to brandish their weapons. I don't know if that's necessarily right. I'm just saying people are arguing, okay, fine. Then was it also wrong for these people to walk onto their lawn threatening them? No charges at all? Just a trespassing citation? Not even disorderly conduct or anything? No. Standing on your own property. That's it. Confiscate your weapons. Felony charges. Mark and Patricia McCloskey, residents of the neighborhood, face 1 felony count of unlawful use of a weapon. It made headlines, as we understand. Conservative and gun rights groups voiced support for the couple. Well, now I'll tell you what, man. Patricia was like waving her handgun around. Nah. Okay. And then you had, I guess the guy's name, Mark, with the AR-15. And I'm also like, dude, clearly these people don't know how to use weapons. You know what the issue is? The Second Amendment doesn't say that you need to be trained to be proficient in firearms. It just says you have a right to keep and bear them. That right shall not be infringed. And that's it. So if there is a dude who's got a gun on his own property, when a large mob, I don't want to say violent because they didn't get to that point. When a large mob enters the property, am I supposed to be mad at him just because he's not smart enough? It's not an argument, man. These people should not be facing any charges. But I'll tell you what, I'll say this. I think the trespassing citations probably sufficient. Sure. If they didn't charge the McCloskeys, because what we're seeing now is favoritism. The district attorneys are straight up going to say, this is okay, this is not. And they're going to protect the people who illegally enter property, who they acknowledge trespassed. That's the point. Trespassing citations are an acknowledgement from the government. These people were in a place they were not supposed to be. So why then would the McCloskeys face a felony charge? If the state has already conceded, or I should say it's not the AG, it's the district. I believe it's the district attorney. If they've already conceded these individuals were trespassing, meaning they were illegally on property, doesn't that give the McCloskeys the right to defend their property, or at least be prepared to defend it? In what capacity should they or shouldn't they be prepared is just an opinion. Why would they be charged with a felony if the government is already saying these people were in fact trespassing? That to me is insane. To then see Joe Biden drag Kyle Rittenhouse and try and insinuate he's a white supremacist. This is what scares me about Joe Biden. And I think if we don't acknowledge that, Joe Biden gets elected. And then where do you think we go from there? More emboldened extremists, Antifa running around smashing things. Why? Because it works. They say that if Joe Biden wins, the violence will stop. It's only when Donald Trump wins do things get violent. Are you kidding? Look, if Donald Trump wins, I think Antifa will act a fool. Yeah, sure, you're right about that. But if Joe Biden wins, Antifa is being told, hey, guess what? This works. Keep doing it. Donald Trump is arresting people. His administration is. The DHS is targeting people who are organizing the violence. And the Portland police have been deputized as U.S. Marshals until the end of the year. That's why I think this is funny. Trump claims Portland sheriff endorsed him. Multnomah County sheriff says he will never support him. There is no sheriff of Portland, but Multnomah County Sheriff Mike Reese tweeted that he does not and will never support President Trump. Why? Is it a political thing? Maybe. It's because I guess, sheriffs are elected and he's probably a Democrat. I don't know how the sheriff, department works in the Multnomah County area. But what about law enforcement in general? They overwhelmingly support the president. When it comes to Black Lives Matter and Antifa violence, I support the president. because the feds need to stop the violence. 110 plus days is unacceptable. But they're being emboldened by Democrats who are negotiating with them and basically saying what you are doing works. We will give in to your demands. And the only time Oregon actually decided to declare a state of emergency and threaten crowd control measures was when the Proud Boys said they were coming. So it makes you wonder. Donald Trump is getting dragged because he said to the Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. Maybe that was the right move. You know why? Because maybe by saying that and shining some light on the Proud Boys can just put up fake posters claiming they're coming, and all of these jurisdictions will actually start enforcing the law. Now, I don't think Trump should have said stand back and stand by. I think he should. Look, Joe Biden tried to catch Donald Trump with a trick, and Trump fell for it. Yeah, well, too bad. Trump's not perfect. Joe Biden's not perfect, but we're gonna pause it. But Joe Biden, he got Trump. Trump was asked to denounce white supremacist group and right-wing militias. Trump should have just said, okay, I denounce all white supremacist groups and right-wing militias and anybody who is going to be inciting violence and making things worse. That's all I had to say. End of story. Done. Trump didn't do it. You know, he got caught. He did. You can be mad about it, but it's true. Joe Biden then throws in Proud Boys. The Proud Boys aren't white supremacists. They're not. They're rambunctious. They get into fights sometimes. I'm not ascribing fault. I'm just saying they go around, they wave their flags, Antifa shows up, fights break out. Regular people don't get that. So here's the narrative. The lying people, the activists and the Democrats, the fake news class of individuals are now claiming Trump refused to condemn white supremacists, which is not true. He didn't do it strongly enough, but he's done it in the past. Then they claim the Proud Boys are white supremacists. Journalists are now telling people, other journalists, don't interview the Proud Boys. You want to know why? Because then the American people would realize that Enrique Tarrio is not in fact white. And that would be bad for Joe Biden. They found a weak point and they got Trump on it. So I'm gonna throw this out in the other direction. A lot of people will claim that, I'm refusing to condemn Trump or whatever. I tweeted last night, Trump fell into the same trap as Biden. He should have just said, F the white supremacists. And then I tweeted today, Joe Biden refused to condemn Antifa, and he even claimed they didn't exist. That's the lead. That's one of the leads here. It's an idea, not an organization. Fox News reports, when Trump called out Antifa, Biden referenced FBI Director Christopher Wray's claim that Antifa was more of a movement or ideology rather than an organization. Antifa is an idea, not an organization, Biden said. Trump fired back, oh, you've got to be kidding. After Biden mentioned Wray, Trump said his FBI director was wrong. Earlier this month, Wray offered congressional testimony in which he said Antifa was a real thing and that the FBI had undertaken any number of properly predicated investigations into what we would describe as violent anarchist extremists, including Antifa. At one point, he said that Antifa wasn't a group or an organization. It's a movement or an ideology. He also said the individuals who identify with Antifa movement were coalescing regionally into what you might describe as small groups or nodes that are under investigation. Regardless, Antifa has been blamed for a wide range of violent incidents across the U.S., this we know. And look, Trump said he's going to declare them to be a terrorist organization. Just because they have no prominent hierarchical leadership doesn't mean they don't exist. I am worried about what happens if Joe Biden wins and we tell the extremists what they do works and is right, and they'll gain power by engaging in these tactics. That's why I can't support Joe Biden. I want to mention one more thing, too, and I'll save a bit of this because it is post-debate day, all this news coming out, and I've got another segment coming up at 4 p.m. But I started thinking about my progressive friends who are saying things like, I have to vote for Joe Biden for social issues. And I'm like, what, critical race theory, critical gender theory, identitarianism? I'm sorry. You know what? I have no argument. I have no patience for any arguments. You know why? You guys supported Obama for 2 terms, and Obama increased our footprint in North Africa and the Middle East. And now the U.S. will pay penance. You know what that means? Guess what? Donald Trump signed 3 historic peace agreements. He's withdrawing our troops. You want to talk about social issues and the Proud Boys and all that? I don't care. I don't care. You want to vote for Obama twice? This is the result of that. You now have a president, Donald Trump, who's actually pulling our footprint back reducing our footprint, I suppose, in the Middle East. And I think that comes first. We cannot just allow the U.S. to go over to North Africa and the Middle East and bomb civilians and blow things up. So you know what? If voting for Donald Trump means that in the U.S. you lose on social issues, that's your fault. While you were complaining about all the things you wanted here in the United States, you signed carte blanche over to Barack Obama to engage in Middle Eastern conflict and did nothing to stop him. For 2 terms, for 8 years, he got to do this, along with Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. So you know what? I can sit here all day and talk about the devastation of Antifa and what I'm worried about, but in the end of it, I'll tell you this. Nah, I'm sorry. You want to complain about the orange man and say he's bad? Well, maybe y'all shouldn't have voted for Barack Obama for 2 terms, because now I have no choice but to say, sorry, you know what comes first? Getting our troops out of the Middle East, ending these endless foreign wars, signing peace agreements, and rebuilding our country. You want your social issues? I hear you, man. We can have a conversation about it. First things first, we got priorities. When we're overseas in someone else's country and people are dying, I don't think you have the luxury to complain about your personal comforts and rights. Because while you may be concerned that you might lose access to some services, I'm more concerned about how many kids are going to die in the next year because America is doing things it should not be doing, in my opinion. But I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/timcast. It is my main channel and is different from this one. Check it out. 4 p.m. I will see you then. And again, thank you all so much for hanging out.